I don't know if we are already live. I see that people are coming. We will start in a few minutes. In the meantime, in the chat, you have a link to the slides to the PDF, which can be helpful because it's a workshop and you can play if you have Docker on your laptop, for example, and you can copy paste the commands from it. Yeah, thanks, Denis. I had echo because I was checking if the sound was okay. Should be better now. We will start in 3 minutes, but people can already download the slides, the PDF, tell me if all is okay, and can already start on the first slides. There are a few commands that may take time, like pulling the container image, like some DNF updates to have everything to build it. We will do it. I will do it live, and you can do it also as well. But if you want to already prepare, you can. Hi, Samir. Thank you for your feedback. I have some stats on the short link to the PDF. I see that people are able to download it, so that's perfect. You can already pull the container and run the updates. I will do that, but maybe I have a faster VM than on your laptop, so better to do it in advance. And we will start in 2 minutes. I hope you enjoy the Distributed SQL Summit, that you watch the keynote with a lot of new features to get Postgres compatibility to a higher level. New people coming. We will start in 2 minutes. You can already get the PDF. The link is in the chat, and can even start to run Docker if you use Docker Desktop. You can also do the same on a VM. It's just easy on a Docker VM so that you can remove everything. I will do it on my lab, and I will commit it to the GitHub repo where, for the moment, I've put only a link to this workshop, and the goal is to build the extension there. And we will start quite soon. I'm just seeing new people coming. Maybe there are also some discussions between people in the chat after the keynote. A lot of news there. Very nice demos I've seen in the keynote, running Mastodon, a big application that works on Postgres, working the same and even better on Yugabyte. Okay, I think most people are there, so we will start. You can already download the slides. I will just repeat that in the chat, just in case. I put the link again. It's the same if you already did it. And I will also mention that you can already look at the slides and run the first commands. Let me just show you what you can already run. The Docker pool, so that you get image, depends on your bandwidth. Run it, that's easy. And there are a few DNF updates. You can already do it. I will do it live, and I will also discuss about Postgres extensions during that. Okay, ready to start. So the goal here is to create a Postgres extension and then use it on Yugabyte, because Yugabyte uses Postgres code for the SQL processing layer. There are many extensions that we can just use with Yugabyte, but we have also the possibility of creating our own extension to do something, to add some functions that are not already there in Postgres or Yugabyte. And you can basically build whatever you want in any language you want. We will do that in C, a very simple program, but that can be useful. I'm Frank Pachot. I'm developer advocate at Yugabyte for 2 years. I've been always working with databases, a lot as a consultant, and mostly on Oracle, but many other databases, also Postgres. And I changed to new technology, to distributed SQL 2 years ago, being developer advocate for Yugabyte. So my goal is to talk about Yugabyte, let you know about it and help you use it, but also getting feedback. So I'm easy to find on LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever. And any feedback is welcome. If you try it and it works or something doesn't work, just tell me. Also, if you do not try it, I'm interested to know why. Maybe you don't need it. So yeah, that's my goal as a developer advocate. And now let's start. So you have the slides and the presentation, the whole workshop is recorded. We will start with the lab environment. The first step is to get a container, and I will use the Yugabyte container because we will build the Postgres extension with Postgres, but then I will deploy it on Yugabyte. So easier to start directly with Yugabyte. I already pulled it and now I can run it, which means that I'm just in a container as root where I can do whatever I want. The Yugabyte image is based on Alma 8. So that's what we have in the slides. If you are running that now, it takes some time, and that's why I discussed just a bit around so that you have time to follow. And in the chat, you can tell me also if you need more time or whatever, just to follow it. You can, if you have Docker Desktop on your laptop, that's what I'm doing usually. Here, I'm just using VM on AWS, an EC2 VM where I have Docker. You can also use Gitpod. I have a link because basically I have a GitHub repository that I called pginfo, where I will put the code that we are building now. And in there, I have a link to Gitpod. If you use Gitpod, you can have an environment where you can run everything. So many possibilities to run and follow what we are doing. If you have pulled the image and were able to start it, then you are in the same state as I am. You are in a container there. And we will go to the next slide. This is what I mentioned, and it can take a few minutes. And now in the container, so I go to the /work directory because this is where I've mapped my local directory. I will push that to Git, so that's the goal. Also, DNF updates, that will take some time. Let me just run that. You can copy paste and run that. I will do the same on my environment, so that I have an idea about the time it takes. Basically, so return to the slides. Basically, we need the development tools, which where we have the compiler, because we will write a C program, we will compile it. And Yeah, a few more information about Postgres extensions. They are like plugins, libraries that you will run with Postgres. You do not link them directly, but those are libraries that can be called by Postgres. You put it at a specific place, and this library, you build it with the standard compilers. And then when the library is available in Postgres, you can load them on startup if you are doing something that must be loaded on startup. But if it's very simple and we are doing something very simple, you just call create extension, and this will look at the files that you deploy on a specific Postgres directory. We will see that. And this will create functions that you use like Postgres functions or like PGSQL functions, but they are actually calling C functions in the library. And with extensions, you can do a lot. You can do very simple procedural code in C, for example, but you can also add new index type, new access methods, new operators, change how the query planner works. There are many existing extensions. Some are very small, simple, and some are quite complex. And the functions can do something by themselves, but they can also interact with Postgres with some hooks. Means that the Postgres software has some places where it can call a specific function. Not everywhere, because that could be a problem. So on specific places where the Postgres community thinks it is safe to do something else than the default behavior. Okay. Let's check on my side the DNF update running. A few more things to install. I need Postgres. So let me run that first, and I explain. Should be quite fast. So that's the Postgres repository where it can get everything needed for Postgres. So that's the PGDG RPM that installs the repository. And then with that, so that's done. With that, we can do, we can get the packages for the Postgres server, but also the libraries and the developer things like the includes that we need. While it is running, if it takes more time on your side, just explaining how we will deploy the extensions. You need multiple files. Of course, there is a library where is the function, the binaries that will be called, but there is also kind of metadata description in a control file. This is what Postgres will read when you create extension with a name. It will look for the control file for this name. And SQL scripts, because an extension can also just create some SQL functions. Here we will have functions that call C functions, but we still need to declare them in SQL. So that's in the SQL file, and a loadable module, the .so in Linux. Okay. If it's okay on your side, means that you have installed all that. We have a last thing to do there. We need the developer package, because we will compile a C program that will be built and has to call some Postgres functions. So let me just run all that I will copy paste. So that's fast or not depends on your distribution if you already have those tools. I also installed the Postgres server because I will start a Postgres instance to test my extension. You do not need that to build it. To build an extension, you need only the devel package. But if you want to test it, you need a Postgres server. And then I put pgconfig. We will see what it does in the path to use it later. So while this is running, yeah, the GCC toolset takes time. So while this is running, let me explain what Postgres provides to help you build extensions. There is a framework, PGXS, where you have macros, because you will code in C your procedural code, but you also need to call some functions in Postgres to cast your data type to the Postgres data type. For example, the function has to return something that will be a text, a number, a Postgres data type, for example. And to make that easy, this PGXS adds macros. We will see an example that makes it easy to call the Postgres functions without too much effort. Okay. So yeah, the devel package. If you are on Ubuntu, that developer package, I think, and you need to have pgconfig on your path. I will show you. And basically, with PGXS, in addition to the macros that you can use, you have also a make file that comes with it that will do a lot for you. You will see that we will just call make and make install, and it will find where to put the files, and it will find it with pgconfig. And macros, we will see all that later. And if that's done, let me check. I've run pgconfig. That just is used to get some information about the configuration, because Postgres can be installed in different places. Now, what we will do, I want to create an extension, something simple, and a feature that is not already existing in Postgres. I will call this URL ipinfo.io. This gives information about your external IP. I'm here at home with my local internet provider that provides an IP address, and I can know some information from this IP. First, the IP that is visible from the outside, the host name, but also the region, the city where I am, location, and who has registered this IP. That can be useful not to know exactly where I live, because I already know that, but when you run several instances on the cloud, especially with a distributed SQL database, you have multiple nodes in multiple regions in the cloud, and sometimes you want to know where it is physically. This is what the extension that we will build will provide. This is just a web page, but you can call it. And if you want to see an example, if you have curl from anywhere, you can know where you are. So here I'm not from my laptop because I'm connected to a VM in AWS. So you can see that I'm connected in a VM in Dublin. More information about the node. And what I want is to be able to call that directly from Postgres, just with a select. So that's the extension that we will build. We will write a C program that calls this ipinfo.io and transform that to a Postgres extension and deploy it. Okay, so if you followed all those steps, you are ready to write the C program and compile it. My first idea, because I'm not a C programmer, my first idea was just to ask ChatGPT to write a C program that does a simple HTTP GET from a host, this ipinfo.io, and a path, because let me show you why a pass, because when you call ipinfo.io, the root, you have all information. But for example, if you say /city, you have only the city. So I want this possibility, and remove the HTTP header. So I've asked that to ChatGPT, but there are a few things that are not quite nice there. So I change it and I've put in the PDF. So in the PDF, you see it very small so that it fits, but you can copy paste that code. This is the code for IP info that we will create. Is that okay? You can copy paste it. And I'm creating a new file, ipinfo.c, with this program that I should have copy pasted. Was there? I hope that the copy paste works from the PDF. It's always kind of difficult from the PDF. I will get it. No, sorry. I don't know. I have some latency. Yeah. This is the copy. Okay. Okay, so I have a program and I will just change something so that this is what was generated by ChatGPT the first time I asked it. And I will just change to hardcode the IP info there, because my goal here is not to create a function where a user can call anything. I want really to restrict the possibilities. So first, I will hardcode all that. So let me remove this part and paste what I have in the PDF. Let me get it there. Okay. So my main doesn't take any parameters and just hardcodes IP info. Okay, you tell me in the chat if you have any questions up to there. Then the goal is to make it, to compile it, and run it. So I've made it. This has created this IP info executable. And now if I run it, it gives me the information about my current IP address. Okay, cool. But for the moment, that's not an extension. This is just a standalone C program, and I will transform that to an extension. So let me get to the slides. We will Postgresify it. And we can do that thanks to the devel package that has installed pgconfig and a few information. So here you have just a few comments where you can see the things that are important from pgconfig from an extension. The library directory there. So this is where the compiled library will be shipped and used by Postgres. You can see, for example, that you already have some extensions in a standard Postgres distribution and already have some libraries that belongs to Postgres. The shared here is where we will find the control file and the SQL files. And this is where you find already some extensions, okay? And the PGXS framework is where you have the make file that will be used to build the extension. Okay. So now we will create a makefile to use this pgxs. So let's create, just copy pasting that. Let's create a makefile and explain what we have there. Because without makefile, I was able to compile a Linux executable, but nothing else. In this makefile, so this is documented in the Postgres documentation. In this makefile, you give a name to your extension. It's a module. You also mention which will be your SQL file to install it when you will do the create extension. And you can see that there is a version because you can version it. We will use that. You also mention where is the pgconfig because the pgxs makefile will get more information from it. I'm also overriding some C flags because what ChatGPT generated generates a lot of warnings. Okay, so now I have ipinfo.c, the makefile, and yeah, let's try make. But now the make has something else to do because we have this makefile with pgxs. We need an ipinfo.control file for a Postgres extension. So let's create this one. In this, so ipinfo.control, let me create and explain ipinfo.control. Comment the description of my module, the default version. So if you create extension without mentioning the version, it will call the SQL file with this default version where the module is installable. Yeah, is installed. So now, if I was able to make it, which means that it generated a .so file to be deployed in Postgres. Okay? But we need also an SQL file. For example, if I want to install it now, make install, it tells me that this SQL file is missing because I have a library, but I don't have the interface with SQL. So let me create this one. And here I will describe the function that I want to see from Postgres. So that's the function that will call my C function. The name of the function I will select directly from it, and it returns some text, the IP information, and it is written in C. Okay? Make, if I run make directly, make install, you can see that my extension is installed. It has put the SQL file in the share extension directory, the control file in the share extension directory of Postgres, and the library goes in lib. So the extension is there. We can try it, but if you do that, you will see an error. Maybe you can already think about it, but I will run it to show you. Well, no, we need to define it differently because I didn't do that yet. Let me check the program, ipinfo.c. I'm still with a main, and that's not what I want. I want a function that will be called. I don't want an executable. So here I will change that. And I will change that with using some Postgres macros. Instead of main, I'm declaring that getIPinfo is a Postgres function that can take arguments. For the moment, it doesn't, but we will do that. And that's all what I'm doing there. But for those macros, I need some includes, which I add there. You have them in the slides. Okay. Now I can make it again, make install. And now I should have the link, so the SQL function that will call my C function. Let me show you the slide. And now we will test it on Postgres. So I will start a Postgres instance, do a create extension, and we will see what we have there. So make install has installed the extension in the Postgres directory, but for the moment, I don't have an instance. So I run the initdb and pgctl start. Starting Postgres is fast. I can connect to it. And create extension. That works, means that it has found my control file. And I can check it. \dx lists the extension. So PLPGSQL is installed by default. And IPinfo is there with the information from the control file, the version, and the description that I've also put there. I can get more information with \dx plus, which lists the function that I have there. And now I will call it, but I expect an error. So don't do it if you do not control exactly your environment. Can have a core dump there. Or it's just hangs. Okay. I hope I will be able, yeah. So let me explain why I get an error. Let's check what I have in ipinfo.c. I declared the call to the function with the Postgres macros. But how does this end? This just ends with a return 0 because that was my main function. But I want something else. I want to return something to Postgres, some values or at least the return code. So you probably got an exception after a while. Let's add a pg return macro to return to Postgres. So for that, you need to include again something because we use C string to text to transform the C character string to Postgres text because my SQL function is declared as returning text. Let me do that. So instead of return, when I've closed the socket, I will get the text, transform it from a C string to text. So that's the text that returns from there. And I call the Postgres macro to do everything needed to return text. I think I don't need this one. And I have to add some includes, though the one that is in the slide. So this one is for the transformation of text. Let's do a make to see if that compiles. Which did I do? I didn't really expect that. I close here, I have the text. Be sure that without, I need the include. Okay, I have no idea what happens. Let me just put this in another way. Tell me in the chat if you have an idea. I probably missed something, but I don't really want to spend too much time on that. I have the include. So if that's not sufficient, I need again to see the first error. Extend datum, unknown data type datum, but datum comes from. Datum comes from the includes of Postgres. I have to Seems that there is a collision and I have to include that after the other one. I told you that I'm not a very good C developer and you can see it, but now it compiles. I will make install and run Postgres and select from my function. Here it is. I call a SQL function that calls my C program that gets the information about my current hostname IP from an HTTP server that gives the information. And you remember that, so it returns something that can be casted to a JSON. So if I want only the city, I can get the city, okay? But we will end that now because for the moment I cannot pass something. Now I want to pass an information to call it to get directly the city, for example. Let me go back to the slides and explain what I want to do. So tell me in the chat if all that is working as it is for me. Now we will see how to pass some arguments to this function. And again, we have a macro for that, the getarg macro. And very simple, only one line to add in my C program. ipinfo.c. And let me copy paste that. So instead of hardcoding the path as slash, I will use the text to string because Postgres sends a text. I want a C string there for the argument 0, that is the first argument. Okay, this compiles, but I need to change something. For the moment, my SQL declaration has no argument there. I want to add one. But I cannot just do that now because maybe already some people are using my extension. So I want to create a new version of it. I keep the version 1 as taking no argument. And I will create a new version. First, I will create the upgrade script that moves from version 1.0 to 1.0.1. So that's a migration script that drops the existing functions and redefine it as taking an argument that is a pass. Still calling the same function. I did what I needed to do with the function, but this time taking an argument. Okay, that's not sufficient because if someone installs the extension without specifying the extension, I want to say that the default version number is 101. And that's not sufficient because this new file, let me copy it, must be installed. So in the make file where I declare it, I will remove the comments for this one. I just need to install both of them. Make, install. That copies all the files. Okay? So now I have a new version of my extension that takes arguments, and I'm looking forward to test it. So you have the commands there. You can do an alter extension upgrade. Let me do that. So I installed it. I go to Postgres. I list my extension. I still have the version 1.0.0 installed. And now I want to upgrade it to the new version. If it was just a simple drop extension, create extension, this new version would have been installed because I declared it as the default one. But here I have already it. And if I described now, I have the new version installed. If you remember, in this function, I defaulted the path to slash. So I'm compatible with the previous behavior. If I call it without an argument, it gives everything. I did that at SQL level with the default. But now what I can do is call a specific path for the HTTP server, which can be city, to get the city. I'm in Dublin, country. Basically, all information that you find there, this ipinfo.io HTTP server gives you as a path. So now I have a function where from Postgres, I can get information from the IP of the location where I'm connected to, which means that if you are distributed like with Yugabyte and you connect with a load balancer, basically you don't know where you connect. You can check the IP address with the listener address, but here you can know where you are in the cloud. That's quite useful. I'm looking at the time and we will continue, but tell me if you have questions. We have the new version of the extension there. Now we can do more. We want to release it. Here I used make install to install it on my local server. This is probably not what you are doing in production. Compiling and building the library directly on the server means that you have all the GCC and developer tools. You probably don't want that. you want, once you have tested it, you want to ship it. What I do for that, and there is probably a better way, but what I do is that I call the make install with -n, which only shows the command make install -n. Doesn't really install, but it shows the command. And then I will pipe that and change the directory. I'm creating a temporary directory just here where I am. And I'm getting the install command from make -m, but I changed the destination. Instead of the standard Postgres place, it goes to the temporary directory. So the commands that are run by sh here goes to my temporary directory. And I'm doing that because from there, I just have to tar it. And I have a tar file with everything I need for my extension and not more than that. Okay, so here is my tar file, tar tvf to see what is inside. All files with a relative path so that I can install in the Postgres directory. Ready to be installed on Postgres or Postgres compatible database like Yugabyte. Now I'm doing that in the same container, but I'm not using Postgres anymore here because I have a container with Yugabyte installed. I think we have a YB home environment variables that tells me where Yugabyte is installed. And this is where the YugabyteDB libraries are, but there is also a Postgres subdirectory with those share and lib, and this is where I will install the extension from my tar file. But first, I will start Yugabyte. So this is what you have there. First, I will start Yugabyte running YugabyteD. So that starts a first node of Yugabyte. Later, you can add more nodes. YugabyteD is quite helpful to, let me run it with status. Will not reduce it. So here, I have Yugabyte started with a UI, and the YSQL endpoint is the Postgres endpoint for it. So now I check YBOM. This is where Yugabyte is installed. I have my tar file, and I will enter my tar file with the extension files. I will enter that to the YBOM Postgres directory. And here I have my extension installed on Yugabyte, and we can test it. I connect. I can connect with PSQL. We have YSQL SH in Yugabyte, but it's same. Nearly the same. There is just a few auto-completion things for the Yugabyte specific syntax, but it's nearly the same. But here I'm connected to not to Postgres. I'm connected to Yugabyte, which shows the version as Postgres 11.2 because this one is compatible with Postgres 11, but Yugabyte. And we have specific views like star from YB servers. Here I have a single node. Did I forget? No, I forgot the from. So I can see my single node there with its IP address, but I have no information about the public IP there because it was not set when starting. But remember that I have all the files for my extension. I create the extension, which means that it is there. Let's list it. In Yugabyte, like in Postgres, we have PLPGSQL installed by default. We also installed by default pgstat statements. And I have IP info there, which means that I can query to know where I am. Or city. Okay, that's really easy. Not all Postgres extensions works on Yugabyte because the storage is different. So if you have an extension that is doing something in the storage, it will probably need to be adapted. But this is on the SQL layer. We use Postgres and we provide, it's not only wire compatibility and syntax compatibility, we really reuse the Postgres code, and then you can do the same thing, creating stored procedures, but also creating procedures that are calling extensions. Okay, just checking the chat. I hope you were able to follow, but anyway, you have the slides and this is recorded, so it will be made available. My idea is really to show you some basics about creating extensions, that it's not as difficult as you may think. Of course, when you see those macros, those C programs, those control files, maybe you don't know exactly where to start with it, but here you have an example, and you can just add functions to your C program to do more things if you need it. Okay? Yeah, I will put that on the Git repository if you want to look at it later. I don't think I have my we'll see. I think I already checked out. Let me see. So the files, I have a lot of files in my directory because I built it there, but the files you need, the make file, SQL file, control file, and C. And I will commit that as we have done it for the workshop. Yeah, I didn't set Git yet, so I will do that later. But basically, we have everything, and I will push that to the GitHub. Okay, we have built an extension. We are just on time. There are many other sessions in the Distributed SQL Summit. I have another session that is recorded about the fast path and the transactional path of writes. I think it's in 2 hours, but there are many interesting sessions. Do not hesitate if you have any questions here, or as you want, you can contact me, find me directly, or we have a community Slack. This is the best way to ask questions, but also to give feedback about that. I'm checking quickly the chat here. Yeah, I'm not sure I seen it. Yeah, about the Postgres, the Postgres 11 compatibility, that will change. For the moment, we have freezed the version to Postgres 11 to add new features. If you followed the keynote, you have seen that we have a lot of new features. But soon, I think that for the next Distributed SQL Summit, we will be in Postgres 15 or 16 or something like that. Okay, let me just commit what I've done here to make it visible. Which means that in my PG IPinfo directory, I have created a new branch with what we have done now. Yeah, sorry. So here is the repository with all the files you need to build the extension, and you can fork it and start from it if you want to do more with extension. Thank you very much for attending, and for your future questions, do not hesitate and enjoy the Distributed SQL Summit. I'm checking the statistics about the link to the PDF, so I see a few visits there. I hope the build of the extension was working. If not, you may have questions. You can also ask questions on the repo there.